some organizations have chosen to have a role for a chief AI officer. And I have found even that sub role or a sub genre of leadership roles has evolved over the past 3 or 4 years. I think in the very beginning, the CAIO role would typically come from someone who has got the technology background to talk about machine learning, data science, and so on. Really to be there to set up the backbone of the AI mandate, to make technology decisions, to help the rest of the org navigate the tech part of AI. But today, even that role has changed significantly. And I think communication and messaging has become very, very important.
We are at the India AI Impact Summit, and we have Hari with us from Ernst Young. Hari, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sanjay. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Hari, we have a global audience. It's made up of policy leaders, entrepreneurs, think tank experts. Tell them a little bit about what you do at EY, please.
Sure, definitely. So I run EY India's Generative AI Center of Excellence. I'm based in Bangalore. I'm a partner with technology consulting. So at the Generative AI Center of Excellence, we broadly look at two different things. Obviously, AI has changed the world, and EY has a very rich legacy of various things that we've been doing over the years across assurance, tax, audit, and various other parts of our business, as well as consulting, risk, strategy consulting, and so on. And every one of these businesses is impacted by AI. And one of the key things that the CoE is focused on is ensuring that each of these businesses are able to understand what AI brings to the table and reinvent themselves using AI. That's one part of the problem statement. The second part of the problem statement is doing the same thing for our largest clients, and who are themselves looking to transform themselves with AI, and to be able to work with them and to be able to help them achieve their goals and prepare themselves for what AI has to offer.
So, Hari, when you are working with these big companies, one of the things that you have emphasized is the human aspect of AI. Explain to our listeners when you say human, are you talking about the user interface? Are you talking about ethics, governance? Explain to our audience, what is it that you're thinking about?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things that we've seen a lot of people do, and actually, let me sort of take a step back.
Please.
So I think when we talk to our clients and the market in general about AI, I think there are two separate waves of AI that are being that are out there, right? So first is sort of the average individual who has probably seen ChatGPT, is probably using Meta AI on WhatsApp, and therefore has this mind map of AI being a chatbot. And now, as part of their BAU, and this is whatever dark AI or shadow AI, as part of their daily jobs, they are starting to use AI a little bit. It could be to refine emails. It could be to put something together very quickly. It could be to validate something. So they're starting to use AI in their personal lives, and that's also spilling over into the realm of business and what they do at work. So this is sort of one way of thinking about AI, or one channel or one flow. On the other side, you have business leaders who are essentially coming at the whole thing top down. Right? So they're looking at what they do as a business, looking at various processes, business lines, and thinking about what the impact of AI on that is. And that involves, thinking about things like, should they take entire functions, processes, business lines, rethink them bottom up using AI, and reinvent processes completely. Right? Now, what we have found in many instances is that the two don't end up talking to each other very well. Right? So you've got someone who has top down designed or worked with consultants or worked with their own internal teams and built this product, which is meant to redefine a particular line of business or a function. But that approach doesn't see eye to eye with the average user, who is then looking for something that looks more like a chatbot, and therefore is not fully ready to adopt what is coming top down. And there's typically a divergence, and that hinders the achievement of objectives and goals with respect to AI adoption. At the first level, the new tools and capabilities that have been built by the organization are not being utilized well. And at the second order, downstream impact of that is the ROI of that particular initiative is not realized. Right? So I think one of the things that we've started doing a lot and we're emphasizing a lot is that we ask and we tell our clients that they should be communicating internally their AI strategy as much as they communicate externally to shareholders, right? That's equally as important, if not more. And the second thing is that I think we all tend to communicate as leaders and, by using, jargon and using business terms. But the typical rank and file, I think they don't really care about that. I mean, they sort of, while they understand, some strategies being set, they really want to they want to understand the impact of that on their day to day lives, which could be, do I have to reskill myself? Am I going to lose my job? What does this mean for me, right? So to be able to communicate that down to rank and file in simple terms, right? So that people feel comfortable and people feel rightly oriented to start using what the organization is providing. And therefore, I think everyone, including the individual, realizes their goals, right? So I think this is probably what the missing human element of AI is today. And obviously, another aspect of this is everything that has to do with skilling, right? And how do you sort of prepare people to make the most out of AI? And again, I think there is, I think there have been some missteps here where typically organizations have started delivering sort of a monochromatic sort of message around AI and very uniform curriculum. And that's something I think, again, which needs to be customized depending on the persona, depending on the team, depending on the sophistication of the individual, so that everyone is able to make the most out of what AI has to offer. I know long-winded answer, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer, but that leads me to a few more questions, Hari, because
Sure.
you have. So you talked about bottom up and top down.
Correct.
So on the bottom up, Hari, there is this whole issue of shadow AI. Do you think shadow AI is a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think it's I think it's good to the extent that it shows and it demonstrates that you don't really have to sell AI into your org, right? The benefit of what people can get out of adopting AI is so apparent to everyone because they've interacted with it in their personal lives, and they're really sort of thirsty for uh, you know the ability to be able to use AI and to be able to bring that into their work life, right? So I think it's an idea whose time has come. So I think the good thing is that if you sort of spend time trying to understand what your employees are doing with AI without sort of necessarily creating an impediment to it by trying to block tools and so on and so forth at the outset, I think we get a lot of interesting ideas about how people are starting to use AI. Now, the more important thing, of course, is that it creates risk, right? It creates risk in that you're exposing your data to private models which could be hosted in another country. It is essentially taking your IP, your customer or client data, your private data, and throwing it into the web, right? And I think there've been enough and more instances now of the data issue. The second thing is that I think if people are not trained correctly to use AI, they may over rely on it. And we've seen plenty of instances of that as well, where people have taken hallucinated outputs and pasted that into client communication. Or I think there was some famous incident where I think someone misrepresented what a policy or insurance policy was going to be because they relied on ChatGPT, and that created direct commercial liability, financial sort of negative financial outcome. Okay, so I think there are definitely dangers to it. So I think, but the approach needs to be gentle in that you definitely spend time with people trying to understand how they're perceiving AI and what they're looking to do with it and what they can kind of get out of it. And then you try to create then the formal channels to help them be able to replicate and get the same outcomes, but through something that is that is approved by corporate, that has the correct guardrails and the responsible AI framework around it, and therefore ensures that there is no data leakage, there's no governance issues, and so on and so forth.
So another point that you made is the enterprise has a responsibility to communicate to the people there. Who within the enterprise should be responsible for that?
That's a great question, right? So I think it is definitely the CEO, right? And the reason I say that is I think AI is too important a topic for you to outsource to anyone else, right? You may outsource, the execution of it, but the vision of what the future of your org looks like in light of AI, that needs to come from the very top, from the CEO, from the chairman, right? So I think there is no excuse because today I see so many earnings calls peppered with references to AI, which CEOs are quite happy to make. And so if that's the case, you should be very happy to to sort of also lead the charge on the internal communication around AI. And I think the importance of the mandate becomes very clear if you take it on yourself. Of course, you may hire a chief AI officer. Of course, you may have a chief digital or a data officer or a CIO who is responsible for the execution of that strategy and to work out the finer details, to figure out who are the right partners to work with, how to institutionalize and what is the right framework for, let's say, responsible AI and what are the right tools and what the budget should be and so on. But the messaging definitely needs to come from the CEO.
Messaging should come. Hari, one of the questions that our audience folks want to ask you is, does Hari look at AI as a technology or is it a transformation?
So I think it's definitely been a technology first for me. And I think that comes largely from the fact that I've been a technologist and I have sort of been using AI. I've been involved with AI in some way, shape, or form, probably from I would say 2016 or so, right? So it's been a 10-year journey. And even back in sort of university, I had done a little bit of work on artificial neural networks. Obviously, that's not, I mean, that's very, very basic and nothing compared to what we're seeing in the last couple of years. So I've definitely approached it as a technology first. I also come to the table with a product lens and a technology lens much more than a sales lens. So therefore, I think for me, it is definitely, technology first. But that said, I've had the good fortune of working with clients over many years, right? And what I've over time learned and understood, and I feel like this is the need of the hour, right? So there was a point in time when not everyone was focused on AI. The conversations were largely with my peers who were themselves technologists. And therefore, the focus would be completely on, we didn't have to spend time thinking about why AI or which AI. It was very much sort of focused on the execution and getting the value out of the AI, or how to make a machine learning model better. But as the conversation has become more mainstream, it's become part of the transformation agenda, right? And I think this is something which is very clearly evident to us in EY, which is today there is no transformation conversation which happens without AI being a critical part of that topic, right? Because people see that as a very powerful lever through which to deliver and to realize transformation. And therefore, I think it's become a very critical part of every transformation conversation. And with that, the way you speak about AI and the way the topic is approached has also changed for me personally. Because today I spend a lot more time with business users and with folks who are not steeped in technology. And I think the conversation starts with, what this means for business, what this means for outcomes, what is the future of the firm, what does it mean for jobs, roles, teams, organizational structure, all of that. So I think it's become a much more holistic conversation. The specific technology choice, of course, is important, and that's a conversation which happens probably downstream. But I think the first step of the process is really, what do we focus on? What do we make out of AI? What is available today? What are our competitors doing with AI? And therefore, what is the future of this industry in light of AI? So I think that's very much a transformation conversation. So I moved away from being technology first to transformation first.
Uh, it opens up several other questions, Hari, and
Yeah,
you are now a victim of my curiosity.
sure.
Does the role of a chief CIO change with AI coming in?
Definitely, definitely. So I think some organizations have chosen to have a role for a chief AI officer, right? And I have found even that sub role or a sub genre of leadership roles has evolved over the past 3 or 4 years, right? I think in the very beginning, the CAIO role would typically come from someone who has got the technology background to talk about machine learning, data science, and so on. Really to be there to set up the backbone of the AI mandate, to make technology decisions, to help the rest of the org navigate the tech part of AI. But today, even that role has changed significantly. And I think communication and messaging has become very, very important. So here's a common problem that CAIOs face today and has become sort of a very critical part or large part of the conversations I have with chief AI officers, which is today we are in the little more than 3 years into the chat GPT moment, right? Probably a bit more. And there is literally no organization which has not tried to do something with AI today, right? And typically they may have started with something small. They may have done a fleet of pilots. Some of them may have worked. Some of them may have not. So as organizations mature, The chief AI officer, in most instances, at least with Indian organizations, looks around them and sees that they have some 20 experiments which have been running around the company. Some of them have succeeded, some of them have failed. The range of questions that they're having to deal with has diversified significantly. So first of all, the projects that have succeeded, now there's a question of how to scale them, right? Then how to manage the cost around them, how to manage adoption as they have moved down the maturation curve. Beyond that, there's a second order problem, which is that because AI is evolving so fast, we accumulate tech debt rapidly, right? So, you've just gotten yourself a big budget. Last year, you launched a project, great adoption, so congratulatory mail sent all around, and some value is also starting to be realized. But then guess what? Suddenly there's agentic, suddenly there's MCP, suddenly there's A2A, suddenly there's forward deployed engineers. There are all these new terms and new philosophies around how AI should be deployed. And you are sort of, now having second thoughts about whether you should overhaul the whole stack and rebuild what you built last year on these new concepts and presets, right? And the right answer is probably you should. But it becomes very difficult to go back and say, look, I built this empire, I built this castle, I now need to break it down and rebuild it from scratch because technology has evolved, right? Now, this is a conversation to be had on the front of the more mature and successful projects. Then there is the whole part of the firm which has tried something and, probably completely due to randomness, has not succeeded. And now it's become very cynical about AI, right? And you need to be the cheerleader there. And you need to say, look, you might have tried something a year back. LLMs have gotten better. People have learned their lessons. The entire industry has matured in terms of how to get value out of AI. You should give it another shot. You should continue to allocate budgets to AI. You should continue to try, right? And that's a very different conversation, right? So the range of problem statements, the range of conversations that you are expected to have as a chief AI officer have just exploded, right? And I think that role has become very complex because it's no longer about technology. It's no longer about transformation. It's a lot about communication, expectation management, getting the buy-in of various stakeholders and bringing the entire organization along with you when all of them have had different experiences with AI. So I think that's actually quite challenging, and it's actually become a very difficult and tricky role to do today, right? And now beyond this, of course, is the chief information officer, the chief data officer, all of those roles. And all of those roles also have been required to become much more mature and adapt and change to AI. The demands of them have changed. The vendors that they want to operate with and have operated with in the past have changed because now they're probably looking at, more AI forward software and products out there. They're having to upskill themselves, right, away from whatever legacy work that they were doing. So I think in general, I think the change in the pace of change has definitely put pressure on all of these leadership positions, and demanded of them that they reinvent themselves and evolve with what AI has to offer.
Some fantastic points you made. One question that came from one of your peers to you is, should enterprises take AI and adapt it to their business processes, or should they be changing their business processes to keep in mind AI is there?
Okay, so the answer to that question is actually changing very quickly. And I think in a year's time, we will be thinking about this very differently. So as of today, we try to work around what we already have, right? In a majority of the organizations that we encounter, especially in India, while there are standard operating procedures, while there is data available, uh, a significant portion of information and knowledge and know-how is still inside people's minds, right? It's still tribal. And it is still sort of, just people adapting to situations which are not documented, which are exceptions. And now in this world, given these circumstances, I think what has generally succeeded is to bring the AI in as a co-pilot, design processes around people and have AI enhance those processes. And I think this is what has worked in 2024 and much of 2025. I think today we are at this pivotal moment where we have for the first time gotten to a level of capability with AI where entire processes need to start being re-engineered thinking AI first, right? Because the core capabilities of AI, especially in coding, if you look at something like Claude Cowork, it's expanding to business as well, have fundamentally changed and improved drastically. I think the companies and the firms which have now started thinking about processes grounds up and redesigning them to make sure that the AI of tomorrow or the AI of 2027 or 2028 is able to fully take advantage of those processes, and the humans are just there to support. People who started thinking about that, I think, will be very well placed, right? So I think the coin is flipped, right? The narrative is flipped. I think so far what has worked is keeping people at the center, but I think very soon we will have to start thinking about how to keep AI at the center. Already AI is the first line of defense on many processes, right? So we are there to guide, to help AI develop, adapt, deal with exceptions, make sure instructions are clear, make sure that everyone around us in terms of our stakeholders are coming along with us, right? And making sure that we are responding to their varying levels of maturity. I think these are the things we're doing today, right? And fundamentally, this is actually it's a fantastic outcome for everyone in general, because I think, look, at the end of the day, humans are creative problem solvers. And with AI taking over a lot of the burden of the mundane and the day to day, it allows us to fully be expressive and work on better and more meaningful problems. Right. And I think all organizations need to plan and pivot in that direction.
You have a big presence here at the AI Impact Summit. You have Scout, from what I understand, the robot.
Right.
What is the interest in? Is it world AI? Is it physical AI? What is the perspective? This is just for our listeners because you bring innovation background, IIT Madras, IIM Ahmedabad. Now you're involved also with innovation. So tell the entrepreneurs in the audience what is your perspective on that.
Sure. So I think actually it's actually quite difficult to run an AI summit, is what I've realized, right? Because a lot of the AI is under the hood. It's very technical. People see outcomes, right? And it's very difficult to explain or demonstrate to the lay person or the average visitor we've got in the booth about what AI is actually doing. In a closed room conversation, AI is talked about very differently. I have a single audience. I have a person whose background and profile I completely understand, and therefore I'm able to correctly position the narrative to meet their interests. But in an open conference like this, right, it's very difficult for us, to sort of be able to show and demonstrate and discuss or create a narrative which appeals to a broad variety of audiences, right? So, as you might imagine, people have seen enough AI on screens. They've watched YouTube videos. They don't need to come here and see AI on a screen again. But unfortunately, that's where most AI is. It is in the hands of digital workers. It's in the hand of knowledge workers. And majority of what we see today as well, a lot of the adoption and the use cases and the stories that we've built are all around digital adoption. But physical AI is getting there, right? So, you've got a traditional robot which is operated through a joystick. It has a camera mounted on top to help the pilot or the navigator move it around. But the interesting idea which is now emerging, and we've thought about it as of many others, and we've seen remarkable success with it, is this idea that you could take a small edge computing device which has an LLM or a chip in it, and we have basically one of the NVIDIA chips which is on the edge. I believe it's a Jetson Nano, and suddenly with some instructions, you have this robot which can become fully autonomous because it sees through the camera. Those instructions are passed on to this chip and the edge on the edge. Obviously, some programming is required, and it also interacts with the cloud. There's a Wi-Fi connection, but now it's able to move with a high degree of autonomy, right? We're able to give it broad directives, such as perform certain inspections or navigate a certain route, and it's able to manage and sort of figure things out by itself, right? Now both the hardware and the software parts of these problems will evolve, but I think it's created this exciting thing which you can actually touch and feel and see right in front of your eyes, which is not on a screen. And it sounds interesting, and it's definitely something new and innovative. And I think we've seen several examples of that at the summit. And I think that's what will actually be impactful. And it's actually been really well received by everyone who's come to our booth and seen it and asked many questions about it. And we've had lots of interesting questions, including, for example, can it be used for railway track inspections? Someone from the government ministry had come by and was talking to us about it. Someone else asked us if it could be used for bomb disposal, and we said we probably want something which is a bit more specialized for that. But yeah, I think the people are able to look at this immediately connected with their day-to-day, situations, and come up with new and interesting ideas, and that's what the summit is all about, right? I mean, I think if people come here and are able to get some interesting new ideas for what the art of the possible is, and have a positive outlook and orientation towards AI, I think the summit has done its job.
Absolutely. Finally, it's a AI Impact Summit. This is a Voices of Impact Summit. We have a lot of world leaders. They'll be listening to you because we focus a lot on policy. Final message to the world leaders from you about what should be the way forward.
Yeah, so I think there's sort of two key things that everyone in a position of power should be doing here, right? I think the first thing is the messaging around AI. Really, the Impact Summit has created a lot of excitement around AI. But I think we've seen enough and more people, students come to us and ask us, look, I'm doing such and such degree. What is going to be the future of my career? What sort of career should I look at? I feel that we still need a lot of messaging to be done around the positive impact of AI, right? I think that's definitely missing, right? So I think that's the education around AI, the skilling, the perception management. I think is very very important because it's a fantastic opportunity. It's sort of a once in a millennium opportunity for us to sort of get ahead, and I think that's very very important that that be done, right? And the second thing, obviously, I think with AI comes risk as well, right? We've seen many instances of deep fakes, the ability to clone someone's voice, and I think we do live in a world where the nature of media has changed. The way we consume information has changed dramatically, right? And I think there is a lot of, I would say, risk around, how the average Indian or the average, citizen of the world is going to be interacting with AI. And I think it's important also to highlight the risks that can come, be it phishing attacks, be it what do you rely on, what is the things you can what could go wrong, especially when it comes to financial services and those kind of challenges and issues. So I think that is the other thing. So I think we should obviously educate people about AI, and both in terms of the opportunity that exists, but also beyond that the risks, especially in their daily lives. I think setting the right getting the right messages out, I think the most important thing we need to do today. Beyond that, I believe that the summit has proven to us that we are thronged by people who are curious and creative, and they'll figure a way out, so long as they have the right information and we're able to work with it.
Wonderful, Hari. Thanks so much for being on this podcast.
You're welcome, Sanjay. Thank
you.
You.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Chief AI Officer podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. And share it with someone curious about the future of AI. Join us every Friday right here on the CAIO podcast as we share more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead.